Today we are delighted to bring you the specifications of the new Z6 Mark II and Z7 Mark II. That's the Cruise of Westminster introduction. Okay. The Z6 Mark II and Z7 Mark II were highly anticipated by those who weren't yet ready to jump into the Z system. First order of business is the brand new XPEED 6 processor.
That's right. They not only have one processor, but they have two.
Two processors. So one is for imaging, which means we'll see better low light performance and overall better image quality. And the second one is for autofocus. But what does that mean in practical terms?
Well, we should see a good improvement in terms of autofocus speed and also tracking. So if you do sports, wildlife photography, or low light photography, you should see a good improvement there.
Right. So anyone who was worried about jumping into the Z system because it wasn't suitable for sports or wildlife work specifically would probably find that the Z6 II and Z7 II are dramatically improved specifically for those genres of photography. Another fantastic feature is the extra card slot. So now you can shoot...
It's not only one, but two.
This is... I see, yeah, recurring theme.
You see?
So we now have an XQD/CF Express card slot.
That's right.
And then the other card slot is SD, or Ultra High Speed 2 SD. UHS 2 SDHC/SDXC.
I'll do this.
So it has two card slots, one for XQD and CF Express, and the other for SD type cards. They specifically say Ultra High Speed 2 cards, but any SD card will probably work just fine. Let's talk about the low light autofocus performance as well.
Yeah, Z6 and Z7, they weren't that good.
No, I definitely found them to struggle in certain low light situations, but apparently the Z6 II autofocus is down to -6 EV, so...
That's very good.
That's a lot of stops in low light.
So in low light situations with a low contrast, you should see a good improvement. Apart from autofocus improvement, we also have higher frame rate and bigger buffer. So what does it mean?
That means that with the Z6 Mark II, you can now shoot 124 continual raw pictures.
12-bit.
12-bit, exactly. And in the Z7 Mark II, you've got 77 uncompressed 12-bit raw pictures shot continuously. If you are shooting JPEG, you can also shoot 200 JPEGs continually before the buffer fills up.
And in terms of frame rate, we now have 14 frames per second on Z6 Mark II and 10 frames per second on Z7 Mark II.
The advantage of having higher frame rates means that you can shoot sports and wildlife without missing a shot.
That's right.
Yeah.
More frames per second.
That's right, exactly. But it is at a slightly lower bit rate. So as with the Z6 first version,
yes,
which we're going to have to differentiate somehow, but with the Z6 first version, when you were shooting at 12 frames per second, the bitrate automatically dropped to 12-bit from 14 if you were shooting in RAW. And now, I believe that's the same with the Z6 Mark II, but you get to shoot at 14 frames per second.
And this is correct.
There we go. Thank you. Approved by Konstantin. We also have improvements to 4K video shooting.
That's right. We now have 60 frames at 4K on Z7 out of the box. And for Z6 Mark II, it will come in the future firmware update.
Yep, I think February 2021 is when we'll see the firmware update to allow for 4K and 60p shooting. Another improvement is the weather sealing and build quality, which is a little bit heavier and a little bit bigger than the Z6 and Z7 as we
have slightly deeper grip, so it's much nicer to hold.
I'd imagine that that's probably because of the extra card slot, that they've had to change the design of the chassis a little bit. Although ultimately everything is basically in the same place. So if you are used to shooting with a Z6 or Z7, you won't have any problems finding your way around a Z6 II or a Z7 II. Along with the Z6 II and the Z7 II, we now have a brand new battery grip MBN11.
Version 2.
Right, so it's a battery grip which has buttons on it.
Buttons?
Actual buttons that you can use to control your camera and take photos and use it as a vertical grip.
So now we can take portraits with a shutter release button on the grip. We've got front and back sub-command dials, multi-selector and AF on button.
Fancy. So before, it was impossible to do this because there were no contacts inside the Z6 and Z7 to allow for a battery grip that had buttons on it, apparently.
And now they have.
And now there are special contacts inside the Z6 II and Z7 II which allow the buttons to work.
That's right.
That's why.
Another weird thing about battery pack is if you detach it from the camera and leave 2 batteries in it, you can charge it via USB-C cable.
That's very handy. One feature that was brought from the Z5 is actually the USB charging. So you can charge your camera while using it. That wasn't possible with the Z6 and Z7, is now possible with the Z6 II, Z7 II, and the Z5.
Fantastic.
Handy if you're trying to shoot video or stills whilst actually charging your battery at the same time. Another product that we saw released today is the WR-R11B, which is a brand new wireless transceiver designed to work with the Nikon Advanced Wireless Lighting System.
And that supports SB5000 flash gun.
Right, so you can now trigger your SB5000 using the WR-R11B remotely from your Z6 and Z7 cameras and any AWL compatible camera.
In conclusion, if you were on the fence about getting into a Nikon mirrorless system, now's the right time to buy. We not only got an update in terms of autofocus performance and low light performance of the camera, we also got features like bigger buffer, higher frame rate, 4K 16p video, and actually a battery pack with buttons on it.
If you're a wedding photographer, sports or wildlife photographer, and you're looking at getting into the mirrorless system, then this may be the time to upgrade. We also have between October and January 2021 a promotion where if you trade in your old interchangeable lens camera, you can get up to £180 extra for it if you're buying a Z6 II or a Z7 II. Was that so hard?